Welcome to the No Unfinished Business podcast. There are 1,000 different ways your clients can leave unfinished business, but no single advisor can address every issue. In every episode, we'll answer the important questions to help professional advisors focused on individual clients. Attorneys, CPAs, and financial advisors identify and eliminate those planning blind spots so you can speak competently and confidently to your clients and help them leave no unfinished business.
I'm happy to be here, John.
Well, Mikey, I brought you in because one of the things that as an estate planner, I see again and again is our families coming in there and they're not only thinking about their own children, they're thinking about their parents. How do I take care of mom or dad? They are getting on in years, and a lot of our clients are finding themselves as a member of what we call the sandwich generation, where they've got not only their kids to take care of, but they're sandwiched between their kids and their parents, and they're having to caretake in two different directions. Where do we begin on this, and how do you fit into the equation?
Well, once again, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. We are the first step, oftentimes, that families are going to take when they are trying to figure this out. When an older adult is starting to recognize that they could really benefit from a little bit of assistance. We are just a really great resource. Our client wants to age in place, and they want to maintain the independence and the lifestyle that they have had, and they want to stay in their home of many years. And our companions are able to enable them to do that and live life on their own terms.
Right, and it's the thing we've seen so much, and I know my dad was in a guardianship in assisted living for the final few years of his life. The thought that we were going to just magically one day take him from living on his own to putting him in, assisted living, that just wasn't a reality for us. But what you're talking about is how can we keep our parents where they are to, among other things, maintain their pride, maintain the self-respect. We're not coming in and saying, look, you can't do this anymore.
Yeah, an interesting statistic I'm sure you're well aware of. The baby boomer generation is huge. And within, I think it's 7 years, 20% of the population will be 65 and older. And the senior living communities that are out there are beautiful, but not everybody wants to do that or can afford that. And we are just a really great way to enable somebody that wants to stay at home as long as possible, as long as it's safe to do so, to do that and do it well. Our companions they're non-medical companions providing services such as transportation, light housekeeping, meal prep, pet care. But really at the core of what they're doing is the companionship piece. Because, loneliness, Vivek Murthy just had a great quote where he said, it's a physical need. And really just solving that companionship piece is just huge, and good outcomes and really a good lifestyle for these older adults.
Right. I mean, that was definitely one of the things I saw with my dad. Once we were able to get him out of an apartment building and into a place where there were other people around, it just made things much better for him, and it helped him kind of live the better few years of his life instead of kind of being in an apartment where the only people he was interacting with were the staff at the apartment building. Nothing wrong with that, but those were the employees at the apartment and not other residents that he was interacting with. So we got just getting people out, making sure that they're not only getting taken care of within the bounds of what y'all are doing, but keeping them where they are and keeping them healthy along a lot of different vectors.
Well, I'd like to talk about MIT has a publication called AgeLab. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I have not.
But they ask 3 questions that help people plan how they're going to live independently and how they're going to do that on their own terms. And the questions are these. How are you going to get an ice cream cone? How are you going to change a light bulb? And who will you have lunch with? And so, the ice cream speaks to transportation, that's a treat that you go out and you get.
Okay.
It's a special outing. The light bulb speaks to the fact that as you are aging, you're not quite as sturdy as you once were, and maybe you shouldn't be changing light bulbs.
Right.
And then who are we going to have lunch with? That definitely speaks to the companion piece. I mean, that's, we live our lives in relation to our relationships with others, and that's really our companions are a great special group of people, and they really are skilled at providing that companionship piece.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but as I think back, before Dad went into assisted, he was in independent living first, which looked a lot like where he had been living before. So it had a full kitchen and a bathroom appropriate for a residential community for senior living. And everything was basically there. The only things that were really different really would have been bathroom. But once you move to the assisted living side, kind of thinking about, how are you going to change the light bulb is the question I'm thinking about there. Is the kitchen there was much more stripped down. It had a refrigerator, it had a microwave, but no oven, no stove, because at that point you weren't thinking about it. They were taking that question almost off the table, and they had already previously addressed the who are you going to have lunch with? Well, there are plenty of other people in the, every time I hate saying facility because it sounds
Community.
right, in the community. Thank you. uh, it just sounds so sterile, but that's the point, is you're addressing question number one, or question number three, which is perhaps the most important of, we don't want you alone. So we have people here. That's why you're in this community. Then how are you going to go out for ice cream? We got the community is there to provide those activities. But we're not talking about moving into a community like that. You're trying to keep folks where they are because they have the means and the desire to stay where they are, at least for now.
Right. And they're also pretty independent still,
Mhm.
actually. They have maybe they're vision impaired and they need help with transportation. Or maybe they're just not as strong as they once were and they need some help getting groceries out of the car, getting groceries at all, or might need an escort to go to an event or the doctor's office. Just a little bit of help. And that's what our companions are able to do.
Yeah. And so before we get into what they do and who the companions are, can you talk a little bit more about what are the warning signs? What are the things that children looking after their aging parents, when should we start having that conversation? What sort of things should we be looking out for?
Well, withdrawal for sure. If your mom or your dad has been somebody that has been typically pretty socially active and maybe likes to play mahjong or bridge or whatever the case may be, whatever the interest is, and all of a sudden they start saying things like, I just don't feel like it. Not really wanting to face the fact that it's because they've got a fear of driving. Maybe they seem a little bit depressed, a little bit out of sorts. Maybe you're noticing that they're just not that interested in food. Maybe that's just become too much of an effort, really, to put a meal together. Frustration with technology, experienced some of that myself.
Yeah.
But just to have a lifeline, just to have a solution, something to just make life easier.
I guess the idea is it's not, oh my God, they fell down, and we're looking for almost the earlier warning signs that unfortunately they may be hard to see right now, which is why we're talking about it. And again, my dad had Parkinson's and dementia. The first thing that never occurred to me was he was a little more forceful in making sure I was driving. But that was something that once I got my driver's license, he was almost like, why aren't you driving it? You drive me around. I've done it this many years.
Yeah.
So it can be subtle in the ways that they may be, I'll say, abandoning or not engaging in certain tasks. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a hard thing, I think, to grapple with that loss of independence and just to have to admit that I need somebody to help me with these small things.
Right.
And so that's one of the things I wanted to share about us is that although sometimes our clients need help, it's a hard thing to admit that they want it, but it's just hard to admit that they need it. And so I wanted to mention a little bit about our platform, which works somewhat like a dating app. It's not a dating app, but what it does do is provide a preview of the companions that are available, a photo, a bio, a little bit about their work experience and their hobbies so that they've got a choice in the matter.
Right.
They're choosing who comes to their home, who they want to offer the opportunity to be a companion to. And that can take some of the pain out of admitting, okay, I need somebody. I need some help.
Right. And that's also the piece of, well, how do we get the right person in? I know again, with the companions we had for my dad as well, it took a while to find somebody who could mesh with his personality and he liked being around. And it's never anything that's about that person. It's always, these are the things we need to think about with folks.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes when there's a common interest, like maybe your dad, did he have some hobbies that just some basis for a conversation might have made that a little bit easier transition.
Right.
Sports or books or movies, whatever the case may be, that kind of helps. That what can really be kind of an awkward transition, somebody that you don't know is coming to your home and now you've got a place to start a conversation.
Right. And besides just the companionship of being there, what other things should they be doing or can y'all provide for them?
I mentioned meal prep. A fairly common scenario is that a surviving spouse
Hmm.
may need help to fill in the gaps of the things that the other partner did. And maybe cooking was one of them, and or driving, and hate to use the stereotypes,
Yeah.
but those are just some things that may happen. And so those are some of the services that companions can provide: light housekeeping, pet care, mentioned transportation. But really, just again, going back to the companionship piece, sharing a TV show, sharing a meal together, just being someone to share stories and spend some of the day with, that can really improve quality of life.
Yeah. And it's so hard because so much of what we're doing, we have so much going on. And then having that, the one more person we're looking out for, especially in this day when, parents don't come home to live with their kids. We're not staying in one place. Even if you're in the same city, it can be tough to spend that time with your parent when you know that's what they need. And it's not perfect, but it's a way of still making sure that they've got some interactions.
Oh, absolutely. That's a common scenario as well. But it could be, I have a good friend and she lives in Denver and her parents were here in Houston. She's an only child and she slept with her phone by her head if in case they needed anything. And if she had had this type of service, that could have made her life easier and made her feel more comfortable knowing that her parents had a resource that was
Right.
more local than she was in Denver. Then the other scenario is you're the primary point person for your loved one, your family, but you want to go on a vacation.
Hmm.
Then that's a place where we are a really good partner. We can make sure that the family that is on deck for providing the care can go away on a trip and feel like they've put something in place to make sure that their loved one is, going to have some help if they need it.
Yeah. So thinking through this, it's going to be a transition. Or can you think of anything that the families that are coming to you for the first time, like some of the common, I won't say mistakes or missteps, but kind of consistent issues you see as they transition from not having a companion in place, things that they can do that if you do this, it will go faster and easier for everyone. Things that they should be thinking about.
I do want to really talk about what our companions can do and what they can't do.
Fair.
So they are the tasks that we have already been talking about, the light housekeeping. We have had some occasions when that's interpreted as like major housekeeping. So
Corridor cleanup.
yes, that is not something that our companions can do. And so just, I think a conversation, and we are interacting directly with our clients, the end users, as well as their families, and just a realistic assessment of what the needs are, I think is going to be the best way to ensure that it's going to be a successful pairing.
Great. Well, anything else, anything I didn't ask about that we need to make sure we cover, Mikey?
Well, I do want to also say a couple more things about our companions.
Sure.
They are put through some really rigorous background checks to ensure that they are the right type of individual to work with the older adult population. They are our employees. They are not contract workers. They are put through a local, state, and county, national background checks. We do all the due diligence possible to make sure that we are sending out the best people that are motivated really. And we do have a diverse group of companions that are retired professionals, homemakers, veterans, young people. But one thing they all have in common is they're really motivated because they enjoy working with older people. And that's one of the things that they want to do to give back.
Perfect. Anything else?
I do want to tell you guys how you could get in touch with me or with Maxim at Home. Our website's super easy. It's Maxim at Home. Just select a companion and that will walk you through setting up an account. Or my name is Mikey Newton, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Well, Mikey, we'll make sure and have links to all of this in our show notes. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much, John.
Thanks so much for listening. You can find more episodes, videos, and links to more helpful content at nounfinishedbusiness.com. If you have any questions, feedback, or ideas for topics, please reach out via social media or email John at john@stromeyerlaw.com. And of course, if you or your clients need help from John with an estate planning, probate, trust, or cross-border tax issue, you can book time directly with John at askjohnaquestion.com.